Cullen live in 1 minute. Welcome to Lynn Cullen Live at pghcitypaper.com. Email your questions and comments to Lynn at pghcitypaper.com.
Yeah, here I am again, turning up like a bad penny. Here we are. What the hell does that mean? Well, never mind. I don't even know why that came to mind. You know me and words. Good morning. It's the 4th of August. And it's the fog is lifting, and a beautiful blue sky is heading in its stead, and this is all good. So, speaking of words, I have two little things I want to share with you before maybe we get into some nitty-gritty. And I remind you that if there's any nitty-gritty you want to get into, feel free to throw things into the mix here. We have two opportunities to do that, either by emailing me at lynn@pghcitypaper.com. I'm monitoring it throughout the show, and also by calling, and that's 412-316-3381. Okay? Good. Back to these two little word things that one I got a kick out of, the other annoyed me, but then I decided it was one of those spell check things. We often talk about how people don't know the differences in like two words. Certain words get mixed up or misused all the time. One that drives me crazy is less and few, and it's just constantly misused. Less is the one that seems to be ascendant. Less is the one that is elbowing few out of its rightful place time and time again. And I suppose the word poor little three-letter few is not long for the world. The only time you hear most people say it is when they say something like, would you like some of maybe a few, right? But if there's a way, you wouldn't say, no, maybe just a little less. It wouldn't do it. So most other places, though, people use them incorrectly. Don't ask me to start talking about it. But another one that drives me crazy is flout and flaunt. Do you know the difference?
I don't know the
Jess?
one at all.
You don't know flout at all? Well, that's what's interesting, because flout is losing ground to flaunt. Where flout belongs, flaunt invariably shows up. They do not mean the same thing at all. And in fact, they almost can absolutely turn whatever the meaning of the sentence is on its head. Excuse me. So, to flaunt something, you know what flaunting is. Hey, babe, look at me. I'm flaunting. Right? Ta-da! To flout is to disregard, like to flout a law. You disregard the law. Flout it. F-L-O-U-T. Now, you see, those things don't in any way, they aren't even in the same ballpark of meaning, like less and few are. Flout and flaunt. And so today, front page, Post-Gazette. I'm reading an article, and it says this. City code restricts to 3 the number of unrelated residents in one unit, no matter how many bedrooms it has. But an unknown number of landlords flaunt the law. No, they do quite the opposite. They're hardly advertising the law. They are disregarding it. That is flout is the word. So I am going to, given who wrote this piece, Diana Nelson Jones, who I know to be an exceedingly bright and erudite writer, couldn't possibly have written flaunt herself, but as she's typing it in, flout in, I'm sure that little busy beaver spell check put flaunt. Flaunt. And it's just flat out wrong. And if you know the meaning of that word, when you read it, you're blown out of the whole story because you're annoyed, you're laughing, you're crying at the end of literacy as we know it. Okay, that was one. This other one is just wondrous and shows the power of words. 2 words put together to explain our relationship with cats. And, or I think dogs as well. Animals that we have supposedly domesticated, I think they domesticated us, and who live in our homes and in our hearts. And biologists, I came upon this in reading some New York Times piece yesterday. Biologists call cats, and here, so they have a category for cats. And here it is. Exploitive captives. Jess, does that make sense? Cats are exploitive captives. Yeah, Jess lives with cats who exploit her while she holds them captive. Right? We bring them into our homes. We supposedly rule the roost. Don't let them out without, some control. And the cats say, all right, okay, but you think I'm a captive? Watch me get you up at a certain hour every morning. Watch you jump when I so much as make a sound. Watch me teach you what my language means. Watch me this, watch me that. Yes, exploitive captives. And I think, wow, whoever came up with that sums up such a wealth of experience that all of us have had with animals in our life in just those 2 words, an adjective and a noun, put together perfectly. I'm afraid I'm not going to remember that one.
I will.
Will you remember that? Don't you think it's good? Exploitive captives.
Mm-hmm.
Because in a way it seems sort of, it goes against, you think, wait a minute, a captive is going to be exploitive? How's that? A captive has no power. Oh, yes, a captive can, especially if it's 4-legged and furry and cute. Exploitive captives. And many of us have been captivated by them. So those were just 2 little word things that I wanted to pass on. Woo. Okay. My favorite headline since I last saw you is this: Court allows groin searches.
Oh.
Yeah, wouldn't you like to be in that courtroom? What the heck is that about? You see a headline like that and you think, okay, gotta find out what this is about. Well, I'll tell you right now, takes you to Guantanamo Bay. Okay, so right away. All right, so apparently the people held captive there are having their groins searched. And you find when you read the article that it really seems a little absurd. Anytime a prisoner at Guantanamo is, for instance, being moved from one place in the complex to another, perhaps, let's say, to meet his lawyer, a federal appeals court ruled on Friday that the military, that's the U.S. military, can continue to search the groin areas of these prisoners. Get this, as many as 4 times when moving them to a meeting and back to their cells. What? Wait a minute. Why? I mean, maybe I'll give you once, but I ain't giving you the next 3. You're with the guy. You got 2 or 3 or 4 guards on this one guy who's been in a cell. The odds that he's got any contraband at all are... So, what could this be except just sheer... I mean, first of all, knowing that I guess all of these guys that are held are Muslim, and they have very specific, prohibitions about sexual areas and touch, and this would be so offensive to these people. And in case you're wondering what the hell is a groin search exactly, it says right here in the article, guards wedge their hands between the genitals and thighs. Okay. As many as 4 times. Going from a cell to a meeting room. Now, often you see these things are to meet with their attorneys. So the people who brought this suit said, this is sheer harassment, and to the point where apparently some of the inmates have stopped meeting with their lawyers. Because they know a meeting with their lawyers is going to apparently necessitate being groped 4 times. Now, last year, a judge said, this is outrageous and you have to stop this immediately. He said the practice is unnecessary and intended, obviously, to actively discourage the prisoners from meeting with their lawyers. He completely agreed. Yeah, but then the U.S. said, well, I think we're going to appeal that one. And they did, and they got the ruling they wanted on Friday, when a federal appeals court overturned the other judge's ruling. Unanimously, by the way, a 3-judge panel unanimously reversed that ruling. And in so doing said this, that the judiciary must defer to the government's assertions that for necessary security, reasons they need to conduct these searches. What? You know, again, I keep saying this. Every time I see a story, every story seems to beg 500 questions. You want to turn immediately to somebody in the know and say, well, what do you mean you have to defer? The judiciary must defer to the government's assertions. Why, heck, if that's the case, then let's not even bother ever suing the government at all. If the proper role of the judiciary is to defer. Anyway, so just so as you know, in case that one slipped by ya. Hey, what else we got here? The world is too much with us. I did not watch any TV or listen to any news radio this weekend. I simply can't. Oh, hey, check this one out. Speaking of the military, this came from Bloomberg. The average major Pentagon purchase. So a major purchase by the Pentagon averages out, comes in at 40% over budget. That's the average. For instance, even when this is the kind of thing where you just want to grab someone by the neck and shake them. The Defense Department buys prescription drugs for our guys in the military. The Pentagon purchases prescription drugs. Okay. Get this. It pays 60% more for the drugs than Medicaid, which is the government too. So this one part of the government is paying, some inflated, outrageous price for drugs, and the Pentagon is paying 60% on top of that. I mean, if this information is known right there, okay, so it's known. How isn't it just? I guess this is what bureaucracy is about, and entrenched bureaucracies of, such enormity with so many layers and so many, you get into Kafka-esque scenarios. You would seem, if you could, like if you were the president, you would see this and you would say, this stops now. I don't care what heads have to roll, just take. You would think you could just do that. Or not. All right. Hey, man, did you, that thunder on Sunday morning, did you hear a big kaboom right over your, I thought my house was coming apart. Window rattling. I loved it. That is cool. Okay. Just saying. So Bill Clinton was in town on Saturday. I didn't even know that, but then I guess if you watch TV, maybe you did. Bill Clinton came to town to bid a fond farewell to his bosom buddy, Richard Mellon Scaife. Now, odder things are hard to come by. Bill Clinton, during his presidency, was tortured, slandered by Richard Mellon Scaife. And if not him directly, of course, by people who were being paid by Richard Mellon Scaife out of his very deep, deep pockets to find anything, any dirt, anything that even appears to be dirt, anything that's even vaguely related to Bill or Hillary Clinton that we can throw out there to delegitimize, tarnish, and take him down. And when Hillary famously decried the great, that there was a right-wing conspiracy out to get her husband, she was thinking, if it was personified, of Richard Mellon Scaife and a few others. And so Richard Mellon Scaife, who shuffled off his mortal coil just a few weeks ago, was memorialized at his family homestead in Ligonier, right? That is where all those folks live, isn't it? I think it's Ligonier. And Bill Clinton flies in to speak fondly of the man who had spent millions and millions and millions of dollars to destroy him. You have to admit that's weird. Now, of course, in this respect, I think money heals all wounds. Because what happened is, and I'm sure you know the story. You know the story. Hillary agreed while she was running for the Democratic nomination for presidency 6 years ago. Hillary agreed to a sit down for a conversation with Scaife and his editorial board. And she charmed the pants off him. So much so that this conservative ends up endorsing her. Well, not for president, but for the Democrats to run. And then somehow he gets to know Bill, and before you know it, he's writing six-figure checks to Bill Clinton's foundation. So it is an unusual story, to say the least, and I'm sure someone might have some fun writing it up. Clinton told the folks that were at the memorial services, our differences are important, and they help us to define who we are, but they don't have to keep us at arm's length. Right, and then what he didn't say is, especially when one of those arms is writing me $500,000 checks. He said that the change in his relationship with Scaife should be a lesson to us all in conflict resolution. You know, I adore Bill Clinton on many levels, but this is such hooey. And this is how the 1%, and they're both in it, this is how the 1% don't get that we can't, it's easy to like say, let bygones be bygones when the rich and the powerful just do a little minuet and change places for a bit. And you'd be surprised how, I guess, Richard Mellon Scaife's failure to take Clinton down. He did besmirch him quite a bit, take him down, and now his generosity to Clinton is viewed by Clinton as an apology that he's quite willing to take. I mean, most of us don't have the ability to buy our way out of unpleasant interactions, I guess. Does anybody have a kinder, gentler, more humanistic interpretation of their late-in-life bromance? And then again, the fact that he endorsed Hillary, I think, would do it for Bill. Because he is, I mean, anyone who even looks at Hillary cross-eyed, Bill is going for. And he will go out of his way, as he has shown, to take on anyone who did not defer to her, endorse her, whatever, blah, blah. It doesn't matter if they're fellow Democrats. In fact, they're often are fellow Democrats. And he'll go after them if he's got a chance. But he makes nice with Richard Mellon Scaife. I don't know what you can say about that. So, oh gosh, this is funny. You know what? I know I don't have to, but let me take a quick little break. And we'll be back. I've got to do a follow-up on a story I think we talked about on Friday. Were we here? Yeah, on Friday, absolutely. Just in a minute, literally.
Stick around for more with Lynn Cullen Live after this.
Download the brand new CP Haps app and find out what's going on in Pittsburgh. It's the fun and free app that puts the most popular events at your fingertips. Text events to 77948 to download now and register to win tickets to Kennywood, Sandcastle, and Idlewild. The CP Haps app brought to you by Pittsburgh City Paper.
Hi, I'm LeVar Burton, and I'm proud to be a book person. How do I choose a book? Sometimes it's the cover, sometimes it's the title. I guess I'm pretty visual. If a book's really impressing me and the writing is really good, I will peek and see what the last paragraph is. Because the endings of books should rock you. I am a book person, and if you're a book person too, read to a child and spark a lifetime of ambition. Join me at bookpeopleunite.org because reading is fundamental. A public service announcement brought to you by Reading is Fundamental, Library of Congress, and the Ad Council.
You're listening to Lynn Cullen Live at pghcitypaper.com. Once again, here's Lynn Cullen.
Here I am, and the dog days of August. I tell myself every year, just take August off.
Yeah.
Just take it off. No reason to be here. Everybody else is taking it off. And by the way, a reminder that I am, in fact, taking a bit of it off this week on Thursday and Friday, and dribbling over into next week, Monday, Tuesday. Okay? So we'll be here tomorrow, and actually, Jess will not be here tomorrow. I'll be here tomorrow, and then we'll be here on Wednesday. And then we're off. Oh, I forgot what I said I was going to talk about. Okay. So remember this story that just freaks me out about how Corbett's a former Secretary of Education was not enjoying the job. And so he said to Tom, I want out. I don't want to do this anymore. And so they talked some more, and all we know is that so he resigned, and they had worked out a thing where he would instead become Corbett's sort of, whisperer in the governor's ear on educational things. Some kind of a, who knows what, ill-defined position instead of being it still had to do with education, but he wasn't going to be the head of the department anymore. And get this, he was going to be paid as if he was still the head of the department. And you and I, the taxpayers, would then be paying somebody else to be the head of the department and paying the guy who didn't want to be the head of the department anymore the same as the head of the department, but doing something, whispering in the governor's ear every once in a while about supposedly higher education issues. So that's great management of the purse strings, Governor. You created a position that didn't even exist and gave it a six-figure salary and very little of a definition. And because of the dogged work of a member of the Fourth Estate, that would be the press, we find out that the former education secretary, now the governor's main man on something or other, had for the last year essentially done absolutely nothing. You remember the story, right? He averaged barely more than one phone call per day. Well, maybe he's an emailer. You know, a lot of people don't do phone calls anymore. Oops. No, he made even fewer emails. He wrote just 5 emails in 12 months. One phone call a day in 12 months. And all these mucky mucks who work in the area of higher education in the great state of Pennsylvania, when asked by the Post-Gazette what their interactions were with the governor's former education secretary, but now ear whisperer, they all said, who? They all said, huh? We haven't had any. I haven't talked to him since he became this, whatever. What is it, a special advisor or something on education? So when the story broke, obviously there was a lot of scurrying around in Harrisburg. And the acting Secretary of Education, who took over after this guy, his name is Tamales, decided he didn't want to do it anymore, but he did want to keep his salary. She insisted that, in fact, he'd been coming to work. She didn't know what in heaven's name the PG was talking about. But get this. This is so funny. 2 days after the Post-Gazette article showed up, alerting all the taxpayers of this outrageous story of waste and what is that called? What is that called when you give jobs to people you know and stuff? It starts with P. I'm coming up with parsonage, and I know that's not. I know that's not it. All right, man. Anyway, God, a head is a terrible thing to lose. So, 2 days after the article comes out that says he was never there, he didn't do a damn thing, guess what? The current head of the education department ordered up a nameplate with his name on it and stuck it on the door of the office he was supposed to be in doing his work. And then when a TV crew from Harrisburg came by and they wanted to shoot where his office was, it had a nameplate on it. So who's going to say, well, look, he must work here. Look, there's his name, Tamales, governor's ear whisperer, right there. And the Secretary of Education specifically pointed it out. The thing is a lot of other people knew it hadn't been there. And either had he, the guy whose name was on it. And so another phone call by the reporter from the PG yielded this information from the State Department of General Services. He said, Oh, yeah, that nameplate? Yeah, that got ordered on Tuesday. And yeah, that was, I guess, installed on Wednesday. The PG story, of course, came out on Monday. PG story comes out. Secretary of Education quickly says, we need a nameplate and we need it fast. And they did. They produced this baby fast. Also, a spokesman for the Department of Education said, the nameplate was ordered at the secretary's request when she, quote, became aware of the nameplate not being in place. Yeah, right, sure. And right, Don't you love it when these people lie and their lies are they're as idiotic as a 4-year-old's? Oh, yeah, we know. Cabinet heads often will say, what? The nameplate is not on that door? I insist it be ordered immediately. That's not the kind of thing they do. No, but they do it when they want the nameplate to show to TV reporters to do stand-ups in front of. They needed that nameplate there. So here's the other thing. This Secretary of Education now, and I can't pronounce her name. It's such an odd name. It ends with a Q. What kind of a name ends with a Q? Dumaresque. Ms. Dumaresque. Anyway, so in an interview with the Post-Gazette reporter before the piece came out, blowing this scandal open, she had said, oh, he only wrote 5 emails in a year. Oh, no. She told the Post-Gazette that the reason is that Mr. Tamales is a little old-fashioned and he prefers face-to-face communications. So he just isn't into email. That would explain why there were just 5 of them. 3 or 4 days later, she's being interviewed by the TV people in Harrisburg. And when they asked her why only 5 emails, you know what she said? Well, the reason is because department employees regularly delete their emails in their inboxes every night before they go home. And here's the quote. There's no email trail for a lot of folks. I couldn't possibly store all of my email. We delete and cleanse each evening. So that's why there's no emails. Okay, so that's why there's no emails. It's not face-to-face. And then when I read their emails, all of these people working for us are completely erasing their emails every day, including the secretary. Wait a minute. Can that be legal? Can that be legal? The Post-Gazette went and asked somebody, a lawyer type, who knows about, such things. What? The practice of deleting emails daily? Wow, that raises significant issues because some of these emails would be considered public records. That's extraordinary, said Ms. Maluski. Okay, so what's so funny about this thing is it's always the cover-up. So in this case, why they didn't just they're digging a hole for themselves deeper. One lie absolutely unearths another lie. They can't even keep their stories straight. This craziness of getting a nameplate on the door and then telling this reporter, well, he just doesn't know. He does face-to-face. He doesn't do emails. And then she forgets that she did that one and instead says, oh, no, we delete all our emails. Oh, man. This idiot who's running the department now does not seem up to the job. And nor, must I say, was Tamales. But then we're talking about Governor Corbett and his choices for Secretary of Education. And, well, we know what's happened to education in Pennsylvania since Tom Corbett became the governor. I wonder if his choice of people to run departments has anything to do with that. Strangely, everybody then went on vacation. Mr. Tamales has not been available. Mr. Eller, who's the spokesman for the Department of Education, says, oops, wait, I forgot, I have a vacation. A request for the Department of Education to give us their policy on emails simply did not get a response, and so they've gone dark. Russ wants to know, why is the press called the Fourth Estate? Jesus, I used to know this. I used to know. Are you on that, Jess?
I am.
I think it has to do with, in order for a democracy to work, you need a legislative, a judicial, an executive, and you need someone keeping an eye on them. The fourth branch, the Fourth Estate. Is that right? I mean, I think the title, what do you got? What do you got? What do you got? What do you got? Turn on the mic. What you got?
Media is often called
Well-
the fourth branch of government or fourth estate
Yes.
because it monitors the
I'm-
political process in order to ensure that political players don't abuse the democratic process.
I was right. I was right. The media is often called the fourth branch of government. In this case, I don't know where estate came from. I mean, why it's not called the fourth branch or something, but it is, because you can have the other three, but if ain't nobody watching the what they're up to, you're in trouble. And this is the kind of story that shows the importance of the Fourth Estate. And the Fourth Estate, as we have known it, is disappearing, which causes some concern from many of us. Aaron wants to know, hold on, what was that boom last night? I didn't hear a boom last night. He said, I heard it in Dormont and assumed someone had finally launched a first strike. I have no idea, Aaron. I mean, I knew the boom Sunday morning was Mother Nature. Last night? I don't know. Anybody on that? Is it conceivable there were still some like big thunderstorms around in parts and places and stuff? Because last evening, and I'd say it was about 6 o'clock, I was outside in my backyard. The sun was shining, and I thought I would work on some stuff. I brought my laptop out, and all of a sudden, it started pouring, and the sun was shining. It's so freaky when that happens. And I went racing into the house, and it just kept up. And I, of course, ran to look at the radar. And I saw that there was while we were getting this beautiful, half-sunny, wonderful summer downpour, there were some heavy-duty storms in that same cell that were, it looked to me, on the south side. And this would be about 6 o'clock, 6:30, 7-ish. So maybe it was another Mother Nature boom, but I really don't know. I really don't know. I'll tell you that one boom, one of that you know, you think of how many people jumped at the same time. I mean, that's because I know I went up when that first one cracked, and I saw two of my cats go, and one of them tearing down the stairs to get under anything in the basement. Yeah, but I don't know. I don't know about last night. If anybody knows, please help Aaron out. Chuck wants to talk about all of this. Email, Corbett, and Thunder. Okay. He writes, the IRS requires that all tax-paying entities retain their records. That's what I thought, including email. For a minimum of 7 years. Perhaps Corbett should be made aware of that. Perhaps Corbett should be impeached. Well, he'll be gone soon enough. How stupid does this now head of the education department, in trying to save the reputation of her successor, have to be that that's the lie she came up with? Oh, no, we all just delete all our emails. I mean, unbelievable. And then Chuck further writes, speaking of the governor, the mudslinging, oh yeah, has already started. I would say Corbett's commercials are currently slinging the most mud. See, this is why not watching television is a good idea. Perhaps that's why his poll numbers are up and the race has tightened. It hadn't tightened much, but yeah, we cannot be making assumptions about this. Regarding the thunder on Sunday morning, it was so loud, my boxer, it's a dog, Gracie, climbed in bed with me, and she never does that. Yeah, it was scary. Animals, exploitative captives, and humans alike were shaken in their boots. Speaking of weather, I haven't turned on my AC in over a week. Yeah, isn't that something? Very cool and rainy, July and August. I, for one, have loved this summer. I've loved it. I thought we were in for a real hot one because of the extremes. But if this is what Pittsburgh's going to get in global change, weather change, I'll take it. I can do those harsher winters because I come from a harsher winter place. And then these summers, nicer, I think. But then that's just me. Russ says, Lynn, thank you for that information about the Fourth Estate. Why I didn't Google it myself, I don't know. Here is where the estate part comes in. It is actually from England. Okay. The phrase is attributed to Edmund Burke, a British politician, as quoted in Thomas Carlyle's book, Heroes and Hero Worship in History. Burke said there were 3 estates in Parliament, but in the reporters' gallery yonder, there sat a 4th estate, more important far than they all. There you have it. Yeah, it is. So it's all the governmental entities who think they're such hot stuff. You have, if you don't have your 4th estate, if you don't have the reporters in the gallery, and if you don't have a means, and if they're not looked at as sources that can be trusted, then you got trouble. And if you think the damage that's been done to the faith we have in our media now, damage that I think was perpetrated by these dogged, I used the word twice, conservatives. And it started about, 40 years ago, 30, 40 years ago, I'm remembering, when we started hearing about liberal media. That had never been, it just started up. Well, you can't believe anything they say, or they're so biased. When in fact, they were reporting the New York Times. Well, you can't. But you can't? Oh, I think you can. They're still abiding by those old-fashioned, gentlemen of Queensberry rules of journalism. Having multiple sources. Checking things once, twice, and 3 times. Trying to get bias out of the reporting process. And then finally, when the right wing had done a ton of damage, and you had like television news starting to like insist that every story had two sides, just to show that they weren't liberal, and then you get this like lunatic side getting equal standing, like on issues like climate change, because media was scared of this attack on them. And now it's all over. I mean, the television network news is a joke. It is a total pathetic joke. I can't. Ever since I've told you what I think of it, and I said, my God, they cover the weather now more than even the local guys do. And they go from weather, if you're watching nightly NBC News, which I think is the highest rated one, they then will go right on into a feature plugging some god-awful science fiction movie that who owns NBC, that I think Universal Studios has put out, and they're just shills for the corporate behemoths that own them. And they did not used to be. They did not used to be. And if you destroy the Fourth Estate, which is what the likes of Ailes at Fox News cynically set out to do, you can destroy our country. I think they're doing a hell of a job, actually. I really do. I think they're doing a hell of a job. Aaron saying maybe I'm right about that boom. That must have been it then. Late day sun, no rain, just a kaboom. I must have been hearing a next door storm. I think so. If I had the timing right, yeah, I think so. Man, that was Miss Nature showing some of her muscle. That was something. Okay. I won't do it. I won't talk about it. I'm not starting there. I can't. I have a subject here that I wanted to hold for Susan tomorrow because I thought she'd be smart on it. And it has to do with women and young women and internet and all of that. And I just might save it. But I did not know that apparently young women, and I'll give you this sort of heads up about part of what I'm going to be talking about tomorrow, that overall, if you ask young women if they're feminists, they will say no. Jess, would you ever say you were a feminist?
I guess.
I guess. Yeah. What do you, in your sense, when you think feminist, what are you thinking?
I don't think I like the word feminist.
Uh-huh. The word. The principle behind it. Okay, so Jess is saying she doesn't like the word, but it's sort of like when liberals decided the word had been tarnished so much they went to progressives, and so you want feminists to come up with something else.
Yeah.
Like.
Because I don't think that females are better than men, but I think that, they just...
You don't think females are better than men? Right. Right. But I don't think... I whom a feminist, and always was, that's not my understanding of feminism.
Really?
But really. So this is what this article's about, that people in your age group have a certain view of what feminists are and what feminism is, and it's not a pretty picture. And you don't want to be really that associated with it because you see it as man-haters.
Not necessarily
really?
Haters.
Not haters. All men are potential rapists?
No.
How about that one?
Just wanna be
No.
on, like, the same page. as
Same
guys.
page, okay. My sense of feminism when it was starting out is that women were so subjugated. And I'm talking about, I became aware of this like in the mid-60s. Not my age, mid-60s, 1960s, 65, 66, 67. And it hadn't even occurred to me that a woman's place was unequal. But once feminists started pointing it out, my God, do you know, Jess, in then when I was your age, I think even when I was your age, yeah, it was hard to get a charge card, a credit card, if you were a woman. You could not possibly, I could not possibly have a job like this. I mean, whole areas were simply off limits, right? So it was understandable that women were subjugated. And the feminist movement put an end to a lot of it. And the feminist movement, of course, has people on the edges who are over the top, who are out of the, I mean, I'm not there with them. But I can't. So this is interesting. It's a misunderstanding of what the feminist movement did, or women's liberation movement did. My understanding was it was about equality. It wasn't about one up. It was about stopping the one up where women were on the bottom. And let's all be equal, okay? Well, the derision that was greeted with initially, I mean, it's amazing, but I guess maybe every generation of women has to learn it themselves, that if they don't sort of watch, they will lose the gains that have been made. But there are, apparently, it's just a huge movement of women against feminism. And this is like women, girls and women are putting this on Tumblr, where they hold signs which say things like, I don't need feminism because, and here are some of the reasons. I don't need feminism because the men in my life care about and respect me. Okay. I don't need feminism because I am not a victim. What? So if the sense is that feminists are always saying, oh, women are victimized, and I think that has gotten out of hand myself. I do. But you don't want to throw the baby out with the bathwater here, because those women did so much. Those feminists that no one wants to be anymore, that's why I can vote. That wasn't even 100 years ago. I can vote. That's why I can work like I have worked. That's why I could be a single parent without being looked at like some kind of a lunatic. That's why women have more control over their bodies than they used to, but that is receding. And we're going right back to where we were on that one, because the right wing does have a war on women and their freedoms. There wouldn't be maternity leave. There wouldn't be family leave. There wouldn't be without feminists. Hello? Hello?
Hello, Lynn.
Yeah?
This is Roger in Bellevue.
Hi, Roger.
Hi. I had to step away, and I just turned the volume back up. And does Jessica have a not a good or she doesn't think highly of feminists? Am I understand that correctly?
No, well, she has a negative feeling about the term she does. It's clear that her generation, I mean, by nature, I can tell you, Jess is a feminist. I mean, in every way. But she doesn't like that word and doesn't react well to it.
Let me throw this out there, because I know I've met a couple of young women who feel that way, and they don't understand the big deal about gay rights and all this other stuff. Is it a lack of, we're not teaching history outside of the colonists anymore in our schools?
No, we never get up to current history unless you're in college. High schools never do, and you know what? It's too fraught an area so that it's still politicized. Can you imagine a teacher having the nerve to maybe teach a class in a public high school in which put forward a very positive view of women's liberation movement of the 60s, 70s, and 80s, when there's a whole party, the Republican Party, that to this day thinks terrible, terrible things have happened as a result. You know, it's still politicized. That's why the Vietnam War is still not really taught.
You know, I mean,
it's unsettled history.
It's that, but also maybe our mothers, and as a father, I should too, and I have with my daughter. You've got to stress the importance of where you were and how you could fall back that way. And I'm baffled at this. And, you know, take a women's studies class, remember history. And also, I mean, a good portion of this, too, and you know this better than me, is when we repealed the fairness doctrine, and the only thing you get on talk radio is one-way conversation. Right. Brainwashing has occurred in this country.
Right.
And people, especially young people who never experienced two-way conversations, liberal and conservative viewpoints, happening simultaneously between two people who disagree with each other, but respectfully disagree with each other. When that went away, and all you get is the same Republican pounding of the fist, it's affected a lot of people's their beliefs. They don't know anything anymore.
Right. Well, you know, and then think of, you know, a constant, decades-long ridicule by the most popular talk radio host in the land, calling women who were active in this movement feminazis, right? I think more people know of that kind of derision. And so often the right wing is masterful at destroying the very nomenclature that defines us, so that liberal becomes a joke of a word, and feminist becomes something no one really wants to be seen as. So
they did the same thing with the word liberal, too.
They did. That's what I'm saying. Liberal. They've obviously, I didn't realize they'd done it this well with feminism, but they apparently have. And then there are certain feminists who don't help things, I would argue. But that's, again, where media and right-wing media focus on the most outrageous statements maybe made by some, in fact, man-hating feminist. Right?
It's interesting. I have a nephew. Well, I have a lot of nephews, but one who's going to some school, Glenville in West Virginia, and we were at a family reunion, and he's like 21 years old, and he's like, I hate feminists because they're so that. And I'm like, I'm a feminist. And it's like, the men who listen to this show who probably are more like-minded like me, you got to be the same way. You especially when you got a young man in front of you, because they are just being beaten, brainwashed to death, and just like most things, they are the most, like, take up 95% of the ills in this world right now. Young, angry, testosterone-driven men, And what it is, they're scared because they're afraid they're losing power.
Well, they are losing power, and they are losing out to women, because since this has happened and the feminists were so successful, women now comprise more and more of graduate students. They are out earning men, and men are coming, men's status is coming down as women work harder and come on up. And I guess, and it's why there was all this pushback to affirmative action, because it helped get women and African Americans and people of color into places they had never been. White men did not have to compete just 40 years ago. They didn't have to with all these people.
I would ask Jessica and her friends and anybody else who has relationships with young women, don't forget or don't learn, study history, see what happened, because this could happen again if you're not careful, right before you know it.
Well, it is happening again. I mean, the right... right.
And so don't have a negative viewpoint. Learn about it.
Okay.
And stand up, and don't worry about being called a bitch. Because anybody uses that term, then you know who you don't trust anymore, you know?
Well, I got to tell you, see, Jess just said, I don't mind being called a bitch. It's a word that has been tainted, and I did not realize that. But, yeah, okay, I absolutely agree with you. Thank you for being there. And
also the word bossy, too, which you've talked about before.
Yeah. Okay, thank you so much.
Okay,
appreciate
bye-bye.
the call. Bye-bye. And that pretty much ends things. For today. So tomorrow we want to get more into this, but I want to get into how the internet is, I don't know. It's that there's a positive and a real negative with that thing in regard to young women and their sense of self. I want to talk more about that tomorrow. Okay? So be forewarned. And have a great day.
Lynn Cullen Live, Monday through Friday from 10 a.m. to 11 a.m. and archived at pghcitypaper.com. The opinions expressed on Lynn Cullen Live are those of the host and do not necessarily reflect the viewpoints of Pittsburgh City Paper, Steel City Media, and its advertisers.